Now this is an enticing reward. Welcome to the podcast where we discuss how to outmaneuver your opponents. I'm Faith, and I'm here again with Jrod and his Dudeness. Today we are going to discuss news on Planetary Qualifiers, the promos from San Diego Comic-Con, and our thoughts on the big upcoming tournaments at Gen Con. Before we begin, however, we want to send a big thank you to Ryan, aka Nervous Energy, from Tony's Coffee, who sent us some delicious award-winning coffee. Thank you. So, what are your guys' thoughts on these new Planetary Qualifiers dates that we've been given?
I'll start off, I guess. So, with me being in New England, specifically Mass/Rhode Island, we did not get any close by. I think the closest one is about a 6-hour drive to me. And, I know other folks in New England, especially in like the Maine, New Hampshire's area, like I can only imagine how far, probably like 8 to 10 hours for them. So I know this is supposed to be just like a limited first run thing, but it seems like they maybe, at least for our area, could have distributed the stores a little bit better because we have one in New Jersey and one in New York. And if you're in those areas, that's pretty close. Whereas like everyone else in like New England didn't get anything. So I think they should have moved one of those over to us. Now, I can't speak for other regions. I'm not as familiar with them, but that's just kind of how I feel. But I know that next set they're coming out with a bunch more, so I'm sure we'll have one that's closer by for that. And I'm going to PAX Unplugged anyway, so I'm probably not going to be attending this first set of Planetary Qualifiers, most likely, unless they like announce some like crazy like promo for it that's like worth a bunch of money. Then it makes the trip a little more worth it. But unless that happens, I probably won't be attending those this time around.
Yeah, we still don't know what is actually going to be the prizing from Fantasy Flight themselves, right?
Yeah. We do know that if you win a Planetary Qualifier, you do get bye for day one in the Galactic Championship. So we do know that portion at least. Now, that only matters if you plan on also attending the Galactic Championship at any point.
I feel like okay, Dennis.
I was just saying, I feel like if you win the Planetary Qualifier, you're probably planning on making it to the Galactic Championship.
Yes. One thing to know, sorry, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen what we're talking about, there was a list that was shown for the U.S. Planetary Qualifiers for Shadows of the Galaxy. So those will be between Saturday, October 5th and Sunday, October 27th. The set 3 is going to be coming out in November. So this will be for that time period in between. These are just the U.S. dates, and we were given 20 days, about 5 events per weekend.
And there's only going to be 50 total for the set, and 20 of them are here in the U.S. And the list itself was even spoiled ahead of time. I don't think these were supposed to come out just yet.
Where did they say there was only 50 for this set? I thought I heard 150 for 2024, and that could be wrong.
150 for set 3 during the OP stream. This set, there's only 50 for set 2. That's the OP stream talked about. We heard you guys, and we'll basically tripling that number for set 3.
Heard. Okay.
But there was one announced in Texas, and luckily it's in Dallas, and I secured my spot at that particular one before it sold out last night. Now, it is a little unfortunate how it all went down because this one was announced, the sign-in, the buy-in, or whatever, the book, around 2:30 or 3 in the afternoon, and then like by 9 or 9:30 at night, it was all sold out. And if you weren't paying attention, you just didn't know, and there you missed the Planetary Qualifier before FFG even like properly announced it. And the one in Chicago also sold out already. So it's like, it kind of feels bad if you weren't like had your finger on the pulse and were just if you were out of the loop for 12 hours, you just missed your spot in the Planetary Qualifier.
If you're listening to this and you haven't signed up for one yet, it doesn't mean that you're totally out of luck. I know some of them have not opened their registrations yet. And so when you get a chance to look at the list of which stores are hosting these events, it'd be important to check if they've already opened their registration or not.
As far as I know, only the Chicago and Dallas one had been opened up, but I honestly haven't looked that much into it.
But still, it feel bad regardless, even if it is just those two. If you're in those areas, that's sucky that you.
Right. Especially because this is like the biggest thing. Like it already kind of stinks that many folks have to travel kind of far, and then also like it being capped out. It's like, could we have coordinated these first ones knowing that they were going to be like not in every area where people would probably be willing to travel to? Could we have made sure we had stores that like wouldn't have to cap them at like 60 people? Like, could we do it like with a store that has room for like hundreds of people? Like, I think that might have been something to consider when thinking about creating this, especially for the first one, when you know, hey, we might not have all the stores committed to this yet. So like, let's get stores that will be committed that have enough room to hold, let's say 200 people, right? I think 200 people is a reasonable max, especially considering how sparse these are. Like one in Texas, man, that's rough. Texas is a big state. Like, I don't think people like understand how big Texas is, but like there's like multiple countries in Europe that are smaller than Texas as a
Right.
whole. So like that's saying like some countries in Europe wouldn't get any, which is probably the case, to be fair. You know what I mean? But again, it's like, can we make sure that there's at least one store that's massive enough to hold everyone that would be willing to go, so that way, even if you're willing to travel, you could still attend,
Well, and as well with Texas, unlike New York. So I'm looking at the list. There's 2 in California, 1 in South California, and 1 in Central/Northern California. There's 1 in New York, but there's also New Jersey. So those 2 are close enough.
Right.
If you're Texas, like if there was 1 in Oklahoma, that would be a little bit closer to that you could go to, but I don't see 1 in Oklahoma. So there's 1 in Texas, which does seem underserved. There's New York, New Jersey. There's 2 there. There's 2 in California, Arizona, Oregon, Indiana, Tennessee, Maryland, Washington, Utah, South Carolina. There's Minnesota. That's the one I'm hoping to go to. Nevada, Florida, Illinois, Colorado, Missouri, and so that's the list of all the states that have gotten planetary qualifiers. If you're in one of those states, you may want, or in an adjacent state, you may want to consider checking if you can sign up for an event. Chicago, with only like Illinois area having 1, does seem a little bit low as well. They do have Indianapolis, which is kind of close, so that's not. I don't hate that so much. And there's Minnesota, that's closest by.
I mean, I'll also say that Connecticut, which is up in the New England area, tends to have stores that can hold a lot. Like I know, like Tabletop Gaming Center and the Portal, both in Connecticut, that are like relatively close together. Like both of them can hold like 150 plus people in those stores for an event, and like neither of them got that. And to me, like that's only like a couple of hours for me, and I think it would have made many people in New England happy. Like, hey, we got one. It's one of those 2 stores. There should be plenty of room for people, so they don't have to cap it at like 60 people or whatever. Like, if you want to go, you should be able to get a seat at that, is basically my point. And I think that, for at least this area, I think would have been a reasonable choice where folks will have to drive most likely, but like at least New England kind of got one. Because like New England as a region didn't even get one. I mean, I guess technically like New York or whatever, but like, I don't know, like to me, like.
It's not really New England.
Yeah, no, it's not. So it's like New England technically didn't even get one. So it's like, how do you not give a whole region one, but you give California 2? I know California's big, but how are you going to give a whole region not 1, but then give California 2? That's kind of where I get a little frustrated. Like, I know it's the first one, and we'll get one next time, but like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
I think it's like it might feel bad in this first run, but they're tripling it for set 2 or set 3 and onward, presumably. So,
like
bit of some growing pains, as it were.
Yeah, and luckily for us, like I'm going to PAX East. I'm trying to convince Faith to come to PAX East too, because that'd be pretty dope to have both of us there. But I'm already locked in. I got my Airbnb. I got my ticket already, so I'm definitely going there for the whole weekend. So if you guys are at PAX East, definitely come say hi.
I do want to note that the Dallas event was capped at 128.
Oh, okay.
And
went out that quick.
I think the Chicago one was roughly the same.
Okay.
So, just throwing that out there. Just from what I know, 128 seems to be the bare minimum, I guess.
Okay, which I mean, it's a good size. So I mean, that's kind of like it's just under where I was thinking, but I think it's still a reasonable number to have that. And the fact that they capped that quickly means they need to be bigger, or they have to have more, I guess. Like because if they have more, right, then people will go to ones that are probably a little bit closer to them. And there'll be some.
There was one in Houston. Maybe some of them wouldn't be taking the one here in Dallas, even though they might still, potentially. But
So that's what is that 8 rounds then? If they wanted to do just one person being undefeated, and
The Dallas event listed it was going to last for 10 hours, is what they put on the thing.
okay, so
I imagine they cut the top 8, all that kind of jazz, and
yeah. But do
So-
you play out till there's one XO, or do you think you do like 2 XOs at the top?
I'm not sure how they figure that out when we cut to top 8, because you don't necessarily need. Might be 2 XOs potentially. I'm not sure. It's like enough to like break it down where you have a reasonable top 8. I guess is kind of how they do it.
Maybe any X2s will be. I think with if you have 2 XOs, you might be able to do it where there's very little X2, like X2 when you're basically out. It'll be interesting to see what kind of formats they choose for it. 10 hours is definitely a long time playing. So if you are going to be playing the game, be prepared with that kind of maybe some snacks, maybe eat beforehand, because that's a long day.
You definitely want to bring water. Definitely bring some kind of snacks. I'm not saying like junk food. I'm saying like bring like bananas or like granola bars, something that will actually give you energy for a day and keep you focused in and locked in. Because 10 hours of deep thinking and competitive card gaming is a lot, and people who go from casual to this kind of stuff, they burn out real quick, and after like round like 3 or 4, they're like, oh, I'm good, and like there's still usually 4+ more rounds after that. So
it's important to note here that the types of deck you bring will greatly influence the amount of time you play each round, because I definitely don't intend to be playing past halfway point in any of these rounds.
Wait, Dudeness, are you saying that you, of all people, are going to be playing aggro? I would have never seen that coming.
I mean, it's a pretty good chance.
So that's a really good point. That's something I was actually thinking of and going to pick on. If you're playing control or even mid range, it's important to know when to scoop. Maybe you've only got a 0.01% chance of winning, and if it might not be reasonable to keep playing that just due to time restraints. If you're in game 1 and there's like 25 minutes off the clock, so it's a little bit different of a mindset where you've got to think, I've still got to win 2 games. And tying is not the best, not your friend. So knowing those things are very important. So knowing your deck is important. Those are all going to be something to look out for.
Yeah, I think these rules, I know that they just changed top 8 rules, right, to extend them.
Yeah.
So like
got extra time limit and tiebreakers and stuff like that.
So top 8, if control's a good deck, means like if you can make a top 8 with control, then great. But still, like going through Swiss rounds where they're still really fast, like mid range and aggro, especially if you're a newer player to competitive games, I would definitely lean towards those two and probably more towards aggro, just so you can kind of reset and take a break, go to the bathroom, like recalibrate yourself to like come into the next round and be focused. Because if you're not used to playing cards for 10 hours straight, there's a lot more. It tires you out way more than you think it would. I'll put it that way, I guess.
I do want to go back a tad bit to talking just about them in general and how it does seem a little unfortunate with all the pent up excitement. It's a reminder that this is also the biggest tournament we're going to have so far that we know about. I think we saw a similar thing with the Store Showdowns when they first came out. I expect Store Showdowns this set to be a lot less engagement in them. I don't see people driving an hour and a half, 2 hours for Store Showdowns for a variety of reasons. But I think one of them, now we're getting a new top level event. We're in set 1. Store Showdowns were the biggest event. That's how you became the best, was winning those. And now we've got a new top event. But in the future, we're going to have even bigger events, which will make the planetaries, I think, a little bit less needing to drive. As well, if we talked about this last week, but planetary qualifiers, this level, are done at the store level. So that's why there is a decent amount of them. There's not as many as there were Store Showdowns, but they are done at the store level. They're the lowest level on the competitive circuit. They are in the competitive circuit, though. So we're going to have other sectors and regional qualifiers as well that will be coming out. Did they say later? Did they say that's in season 0? Or do they say those are going to have to wait till season 1 for regionals and sectors?
That is a very good question, sir, and I can't recall.
I didn't even get to watch the stream, so I'm not sure on that one.
I'd hazard a guess that there will be regionals leading up to the Galactic Championship, but I honestly don't know. I could be lying to everybody. I apologize if I am.
So when we get more information on that, we'll have to just wait and see. But there are going to be higher level tournaments coming. So don't worry if you're that competitive player and you missed out on in Chicago or in Dallas. There is going to be more planetaries in the future, especially come set 3, and there is going to be even higher level events as well. All working our way towards the Galactic Championship.
Which, don't forget, the first one will be open, so just kind of be first come, first serve. So like these events, which will in the future count towards and help you earn your spot into the big event, this time it's kind of just an event to like take down, and you probably win some prize money and some cool cards or whatever, I'd imagine. So, there's definitely still positives to go play in these. And honestly, one of the biggest positives that these sold out so fast is just how popular this game is. Like, if you were questioning, hey, is Star Wars still popular? Like, it's, people aren't really playing at my store as much. Like, these things selling out that fast should tell you if there is an abundance of product, this game will flourish, which I believe in the future sets we will have. And with their set 1 reprint around the corner, because don't forget, they said before the holidays, so we're probably 2 to 3 months out from potentially seeing that. So once those set 1 and set 2 reprints kind of come, I don't know if set 2 has been announced yet, so I don't know if that's actually the case, but I know set 1 for sure. And then I'm sure at some point we'll get set 2 again. And set 3, they've stated that it should be a bit more print run than the first 2. So with all this product hopefully coming into the market, it will allow new players to start playing the game, and we'll be able to grow our local scene. I know personally my local scene is hindered because there aren't many new people joining the game because they can't get enough product to build a deck. So how is someone supposed to play a game that can't even purchase the stuff right now? Which is just an unfortunate factor of how popular this game has blown up to already.
They did mention that set 2 would be released in waves. This is what Jim had announced on a stream. And so we wait for those second wave pump. And then, set 1. I'm guessing set 1 reprints will come around in time for the holidays around set 3 release. So that's estimated timeline that I would hazard a guess at. One thing, as just to clarify, with Planetary Qualifiers, Jrod points out that in the future, they will earn you points. So where for this year, they're going to give you a buy to day 2. In future years, I think they said if you win a Planetary Qualifier, you automatically get enough points to qualify for the Galactic Championship come in the future. So that will be at least a guaranteed ticket to the Galactic Championship. Other places will get points, and then those points will be how you qualify. And as we're talking about how popular the game is, it is also noteworthy to talk about what we've been seeing out of San Diego Comic-Con. So for those who don't know, at 5 events this year, they are going to be selling these promo packs, the Power of the Dark Side promo packs. We talked about them a few weeks ago, which include 6 cards with alternate treatments. Is it 6 or 5 cards with alternate treatments? And they are selling out fast. Jrod and his Dudeness, what have you guys seen from these from the Comic-Con desire to get these promo packs?
I've seen people complain about showing up like at the doors at like 5:30 and waiting until they open at 9 and trying to go stand in line and then being told there's no more space for you. So like it's a gigantic poop show, as it were. I'm glad I'm not there trying to get one because it sounds awful. Trying to wait in line, like the first day was wait in line, first come first serve, and then like I think the next day it was like you wait in line and you get like a ticket, and you come back and can buy it or something. It sounds like it's infinitely worse than what's going to be happening at Gen Con, where you just claim your ticket digitally, and then you come and buy it whenever you want once you have the ticket. So there's no like standing in line, waiting and hoping.
Oh, see, I think the digital one's worse because people are going to set up bots for that.
So see, I've seen people say that, but you do need a Gen Con ticket, so it's not like the bots can.
And I guess one ticket per one person. So yeah, I could see that being a better potential option.
Because like I mean, I saw a post on Facebook, someone complaining, waited since 5:30 and still wasn't able to get one.
Yeah.
Like that's just awful. It's just dog
I
awful. And they were
yeah
selling for 300 the first night. And they were basically insta selling, and
yeah
I
it's
think
too
recently
cheap.
they're selling for like 400. And they're
Yeah,
still
I imagine they're gonna go for around like
Resale.
5-ish. Yeah. Yeah, they sell for 100 when you buy them at the convention, but if you factor in, like, everyone's like, oh, how can you sell it for like 400, $500? It's like, well, if you factor in the fact that I had to buy a ticket to the convention, I had to probably drive there and park at minimum. Like, I'll tell you, I live right next to the convention, right? So I don't need hotels or flights or anything like that. I live there. At minimum, you're spending like $250 probably on getting into the convention, buying the products, and parking your vehicle. You know what I mean? Or at minimum, let's just say 200, 100 for the convention, 100 for the products, because you could walk there from your house. Best case scenario, right? Which is probably like a very small percentage of human beings actually live near these conventions. So like,
most of
it's
them are traveling.
yeah, exactly. So and then if you're traveling, you factor in hotels and flights and or driving, rental cars, all this stuff. Like, it's a lot. So people who are complaining about the resale prices, like, that's how these things go. You know, like, if you can get to those things, it's going to cost you about how much to get that same price. So it's like, do you want to go and wait in line and do all that and maybe get one, or do you want to just buy one for 300, $400 and just save all your money and just, okay, I got what I wanted, you know? So
it is $100 for 6 cards that we are going to have regular access to.
Mhm.
I think the one feel bad is the fact that we are still pretty far away from set 3, and so the fact that you get an early access to Darth Maul and to Ventress is a little bit of a feel bad. You can't use them in any tournament, so it's not like you got a competitive advantage. But I do see the argument for people saying, like, we don't get to play with this card for another 3 months, and that just kind of feels bad. I understand why they're doing it, but it's nice that you don't. It's not exclusive access. It's not like these people get a card that you're not going to get. You are going to be able to get. They're just in a cooler treatment.
You can bet your butt that I would be jamming all 6 of these cards in my Twin Suns deck. All in a single one. All of them. They would all be in a single Twin Suns deck. Ready to go. If I had this in my hand already. Now, when PAX comes around, it's the beginning of December, so it'll probably be right around when Set 3 is releasing, maybe actually after Set 3 releases, so those cards probably won't be as exciting to open as they would be right now, obviously, because potentially I'd be able to get my hands on them, or we'll know about the whole set or whatever, but I don't know. I mean, for me, it's just, if you want these cards for like Twin Suns or just for collectability sakes, they're great and wonderful. You don't need them to play in tournaments. You don't need them to win games. So people who are complaining about prices, man, if it's too expensive for you, that's okay. These cards aren't for you then. That's not a big deal. Like, don't be upset that people are trying to, who've received them and want to sell them to make some money. Great. They wanted to go to the convention and cover some of their costs by purchasing this. I think it's a reasonable option, because there's human beings that can't go, that want to purchase this and want to have the cool collectible stuff, because these cards look amazing. And I talked to Kevin from Roll On Gaming, who was able to get one of these on day one of Comic-Con, and he said these things are even better when in your hand. Like, they're amazing. Like, he could not stop gushing over these cards. So, like, they're amazing if you want to purchase, obviously, the high price tag for $100, because that's not cheap for 6 cards by any means. Even though I know Vader at one point was going for 100 himself, he's obviously not now. And I think as we get more products, the legendaries might actually go down to where Dudeness and I thought they might in the very beginning, around like $20, $30 for like competitive legendaries like Vader and Poe and those kind of legendaries. Once we start getting more steady stream of product than what we have right now. So this pack might go down, and might not go down in value, because it's only for the 1 year and then you can't get it anymore. So think about that too. Like, once it's out of print, you probably can't get it again, and they'll probably have a light side one for next year if I had to guess. So these might be the only time you can get these cards is this year. So that will likely, if you keep one sealed, likely go up in price over time, because people who love dark side stuff will want this, because it's all like the main characters. So in their first printings as well, which is important to note for like long-term investors. That's also an important factor.
So when we're looking at number-wise, if you're thinking about them, there's about 200, I think they said, released per day at San Diego Comic-Con. I imagine that number will stay the same for each event. So if that's 3 days, if you have the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's about 600 per event. With 5 of them, that's about 3,000 copies of each singular version of these cards. So that's just a rough guess, so you can see how many of these cards are going to be in the population. If you need a 3 set, That means there's about 1,000 play sets out there.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not a collector in any way, shape, or form. And me not having these cards is not going to affect me in any way.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think that they handled this absolutely the correct way, talking about the product itself, not necessarily how they've had it delivered at conventions, but the product itself is great for someone like myself who is somewhat of a collector and would want these cards. I'll try to go out of my way to get them, but a person like Dudeness who wants to just play the game and have fun doesn't need these cards. He can get access to all these cards in a much cheaper version and play the same deck that I can play with these cards. You know what I mean? So I think that's just a great way to have that, and it really shows that FFG understands the trading card industry pretty well.
Yeah. And so as we look towards not San Diego Comic-Con, but shift our focus to Gen Con, which decks or cards do you expect to see a lot of at Gen Con? There'll be some big tournaments there. Probably what most would consider the biggest tournaments to date before these planetaries start, which will be these, I think, 128-person Gen Con tournaments. We're not sure of prizes, I think, yet for them. But yeah, what cards do you think we're going to see? This is going to be our first big event in set, with set 2 being legal.
I think the biggest card you're going to see all over the tables is going to be Poe Dameron. I think he's insane. He's pretty nutty. Any heroic red deck he's going in. And with Sabine being the cheapest option for decks in set 1, people are going to want to play her. However, her jump from set 1 to set 2 got really expensive. She probably became one of the more expensive decks in the format from set 2 because you need 3 Poes, probably some Dark Sabers, some number between 1 and 3. Wreckers as well, which just a rare, but still like $6-7 per Wrecker, which is not nothing. So I think that Sabine's going to be a big player, as she has been in set 1, but the deck's going to change a good amount. I think Boba Fett will probably be a player as well, because people are used to playing Boba Fett. I don't think outside of those two we'll see a ton of set 1 leaders, maybe some Han, some yellow Han, but I think we could also see the new Han as well. I think Kira is definitely going to be a player, and then I think Palp also might see a good amount of play as well. I've seen some good Palpatine decks. I think the sneaky one, though, that could be is Jabba. I think Jabba can be really sneaky, and I think that he could be a subtle player as well if people want to go to the more underworld control decks instead of the Imperial control decks that Palpatine's offered.
Well, now that Jrod took all the answers, students, any decks that you think are going to be seeing, any cards that are going to be big?
I mean, I was just looking at, there is the Star City Game Con Baltimore yesterday. They had the 1K and a Han and Green won that one. And so, I mean, I could just see more of that, right? I mean,
sorry, which Han was it? Old or young?
The old Han.
Old green
with
Han.
Echo base, yeah, with Echo base.
So
ramping out, it's got cards like DJ and Tech Combo, cards like Cloud Rider.
Hold on, real quick,
Falcon.
Before we move forward, let's distinguish this naming convention for all this. We're gonna have a ton of leaders. So like old Han and new Han work for now, but we should say Han 1 and Han 2. So Han 1 would be the first printing of Han, and then Han 2 would be the second printing of Han. It's how it works in Destiny, because there's always the same leaders getting reprinted a lot of the times. So like it helps just like knowing where you were. So I think we should use Han 1, Han 2, and do that for leaders moving forward. So that way it's, because if we get another like young Han, quote unquote, it'd be awkward to be like young Han, younger Han.
Younger Han.
Sure. So Han 1, green Han 1 won the event.
Yeah. Which is just your typical mid-range build, topping out Home 1 and Reinforcement Walker. With a good boy U-Ring Reinforcement, it's still a banger of a card.
U-Ring's so good.
So any other things you're expecting to see?
I mean, honestly, no, I don't really know what to expect, honestly.
I think that there might be a Bosk or two that do pretty well. I mean, Ray's been pretty popular. I don't know if it's going to see the success. I think Bosk is going to, make a couple people turn their heads. I think Bosk is going to be at his best this set, in my opinion. I don't know what we're going to get for bounties in the future sets, but I think if we're ever going to see Bosk do well, it's going to be this set. He has one less health than Boba Fett, so like he's a pretty competitive unit in that way. And one thing interesting is with the Boba Fett unit change, being that when a leader is deployed, it's considered entering the battlefield. so that way Bobo doesn't get his benefit. It does make the Boba threat to a 6 health leader a lot less. Just a thing that I've experienced so far and a little bit of the playing I've been doing.
Yeah. Also, really quickly, because I always scroll Facebook while I'm on this, kind of jumping back real quick to the qualifiers for a minute. The New York qualifier is capped at 72 players.
And that
So
feels
just
bad.
Wow.
yeah. So I will definitely not be going to that one because it's not worth.
That's
Yeah,
feel bad.
Correct. So, anyways, but I just saw that my buddy had liked it, said he was interested in going, so it came up my feed, and so I saw it, and I was like, oh, that sucks. But
yeah, I mean, we'll definitely be looking at which decks come out of Gen Con in order to be the kind of new meta, especially as you're going to your store showdowns, which should be coming up next month as we're recording this at the end of July. The store showdown's coming out 1 month after the set release. So this will be the kind of first big event which people will take ideas from coming to a store showdown near you. So then it'll also give you a chance to build against those decks because you'll probably see them in the first couple events. So this we're going to get some big important information out of this.
If you're going to Gen Con, you're like, I'm not sure what to play or whatever, I would say either play one of the known decks because they're going to be generally on average good. Always play what you know more though. Like if you know a deck well, like if you know Han 1 real well, then play that. But I would also make sure that you're ready to go for Red Ray, Sabine Green, and Mono Yellow Boba. I think are the 3 like main pillars heading into this. That people are like confident that we'll see those decks a good amount. So you should be ready for those, understand how those decks play, and expect to see a lot of those decks. Those are also 3 good options for you to play as well for a deck to start grinding that a little bit this week. But yeah, that's where I would be. I'd probably be on one of those 3. Maybe Han 2 as well. I kind of like Han 2. Double red. I like the Woo's list there. So
okay, if you had to pick, if we each pick one deck that you'd be playing if you go to Gen Con, what would it be?
I haven't played. Like I just built Red Ray, so I haven't actually played her yet. I just know she's very popular, so I probably wouldn't bring that because of how popular she is. Just from the fact that like everyone should be expecting to see her there. So I'd probably bring Double Red Han in that case, just because I think that deck has a lot of flexibility, a lot of options. It can go aggro, it can go mid range. That's what I really like out of my decks. So I'd probably end up in that.
I would bring. I mean, I would probably just stick with what I know, and I would bring Green Krennic as long as I had all the cards. If I didn't have all the cards, the deck I have the most complete would be Han 2, Green Han 2.
Okay.
Dudeness, what would you bring?
Oh, I guess Dudeness stepped away for a moment.
Oh, well, we'll have to wait till next week to figure out what Dudeness will bring, would have brought to Gen Con. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Let us know in the comments which deck you would bring to Gen Con if you were going. See you next time on Outmaneuver.
Cheers, y'all.